So, what does the word Arya really mean? Is it about your race, your family tree? Well, today we're going to dive into a text called Arya Parampara, and we're going to trace this sort of golden thread through history to see how it presents a completely different idea, one that's based on how you act, not who you were born to.
All right, let's get right into it. The text doesn't waste any time. It says, look, Arya isn't about your family line. It's about how you live your life. And it all boils down to three main things: following the Vedas, always sticking to the truth, or Satya, and performing your dharma. Now, dharma isn't just duty. Think of it more like righteous living, doing the right thing to keep everything in balance. This is the core idea we're going to follow.
And this slide, it's basically our roadmap. We're going to start way back in the Satya Yuga, the age of the great sages, where this whole idea supposedly began. Then we'll see it come to life with epic figures like Rama and Krishna. After that, we'll see how it was defended by reformers and warriors when things got tough. And we'll finish up by seeing how it was all brought together again for the modern world.
Okay, so first stop on our journey, the very beginning. According to this text, it all starts in the Satya.
The text presents this era as, like, the perfect starting point, the gold standard. This was the time of the rishis, the great sages, and everything was guided by Vedic teachings. Truth wasn't just a nice idea. It was literally the bedrock of their whole society. You could think of it as the original blueprint, the source code for this Arya way of life. Okay, so if the Satya Yuga was about writing the code, how did it actually get put into practice? Well, that's where the next two eras come in, the Tritiya Yuga and the Dwapara Yuga. This is when we get to see that code running, so to speak, in the lives of some of the biggest names in the Indian epics.
First up, the Treta Yuga, the time of the Ramayana. Each key figure here is like a walking example of a specific virtue. You've got Lord Rama, the ideal man; Sita Mata, the symbol of sacrifice; Hanuman, the perfect example of selfless service. The point the text is making is that these weren't just stories. These figures were living, breathing examples of what it meant to live out your dharma.
Next, we move into the Dwapara Yuga, the era of the Mahabharata. And here, the theme kind of shifts. It's less about the perfect ideal and more about the struggle for dharma. You have Lord Krishna as the divine guide, the Pandavas fighting for what's right, and people like Bhishma who show this incredible, unshakable commitment to their vows. It's all about that epic battle between right and wrong, dharma and adharma. Okay, so we've seen the ideal get established, and we've seen it lived out perfectly. But life isn't always that simple, right? Ideals get tested. So what happens when this whole way of life starts getting challenged, not just from the outside, but from the inside too? That question is our bridge to the next, much more chaotic period in the story.
And that brings us to the Kali Yuga. Now the story changes again. It's no longer just about living the ideal, it's about actively defending it. And this defense, according to the source, happened in two major ways.
First, you had the threats from within. The text says that over time, superstition and empty rituals started to creep in and cloud the original message. So a whole line of saints and reformers stepped up. You had brilliant thinkers like Adi Shankaracharya, who kind of brought back the intellectual firepower of Vedic thought. And then you had poet saints like Guru Nanak and Kabir, who used simple, powerful words to cut through all the noise and get people back to the heart of what really mattered. And then, of course, you had the threats from the outside. During times of invasion, the job of upholding this Aryatva fell to warriors. And the text points to heroes from all over: Maharana Pratap, Chhatrapati Shivaji, Guru Gobind Singh. The idea here is that they weren't just fighting for land or power, they were seen as protectors of Dharma itself, fighting for their culture, their faith, and their freedom. So you've got this long, unbroken chain: sages, epic heroes, reformers, warriors. And that brings us all the way to the 19th century, and to one person who the source says pulled all these threads together for the modern age: Maharishi Dayanand Saraswati. And his message was incredibly powerful and simple: back to the Vedas. This was his call to action. He wanted to clear away everything that he felt was cluttering up the tradition, all the superstitions and social problems that had built up over centuries, and get back to the pure, original ideas from the very beginning, from the Satya Yuga. And he didn't just talk about it. He was a man of action. He took on social problems head-on. He created the Arya Samaj in 1875 to actually do the work of waking people up. And his ideas were so powerful, they went on to inspire a whole generation of freedom fighters who became huge figures in the push for India's independence. And here's where it all comes full circle. Just look at how he defined Arya. It's pretty much the same definition we started with,
back in the Satya Yuga, but he adds this really modern twist: dedication to the nation and society. So it's still all about your actions, about truth and duty, but now it's framed for the world he was living in. So what's the big takeaway here? How do all these different people and eras fit together? Well, the text argues that they're not separate stories at all. They're all part of one single unbroken tradition.
That golden thread we talked about at the beginning, it's their actions. That's what connects everyone, from Ram and Krishna to Shivaji and Guru Gobind, all the way to Dayanand. The source is saying they're all Aryas because they all lived their lives fighting for the same things. For Dharma, for truth, and for the nation. And that really leaves us with something to chew on, doesn't it? If a tradition is defined by what you do instead of where you come from, how does that change the way we look at history? Or even how we think about our own identity? It's a pretty powerful idea.